welcome to another episode of the Preparedness Podcast, the podcast that brings you the best in preparedness information. You can find us online at www.thepreparednesspodcast.com. My name is Rob Hannes, and I am the host for the show. You can reach me at rob@prepcast.info. Today's podcast is going to be another current events and news podcast. I've got a couple things I've come across that I wanted to kind of mention. Before that, though, just a couple things to get through. The listener survey on the website, there's a little banner there. If you click on it, it'll take you to the listener survey for the place that actually does the tracking for the podcast downloads and stuff. If you get some time, fill that out, because that gives us feedback on who you are and what you like, what you don't like, and your listening habits and stuff. And that helps us, make a better podcast. It's completely anonymous, so no worries about giving away who you are. I want to thank the scores of listeners that have filled out the survey, because that, like I said, gives us a lot of useful information, and it helps us make a better podcast. While you're on the website, go ahead and sign up for the weekly tips. These are exclusive article-length tips on preparedness that we send out every week. One of the reasons I don't like to pre-announce things that are coming up or things that I like to get to is because a lot of times things change and I never get around to it. For example, the spouse show. A couple weeks ago, we said, hey, it's one of the shows that we're planning on. Send your questions in if you have any specific questions about getting your spouse involved with preparedness and getting prepared. And we still haven't put it out yet. One of the reasons is because with QE3 coming out recently, I decided to do the hyperinflation mini-series. But now that that's done, we're going ahead and getting back on track. And look for this to come out hopefully in the next week or two. But again, I don't like to mention because things change so often. So we're still working on it, still in the plan, and we hope to have it out fairly soon. Okay, the first news item I wanted to cover was the gas shortage in California. Now, I tweeted this out last week. Actually, I think it was the weekend, Friday night, actually, I believe. What's happening is that there's been some refinery power outages, and part of the issue is that they have so many different blends of fuel for every town, it seems, in California, that they constantly have to be retooling the refineries to make these blends. So they can't just have regular gas. It's got to be special gas during special times of the year. Well, apparently some of the places have been running short. I posted a tweet out on this just to kind of give people a heads up. I did this as sort of a, hey, heads up. We watch for red flag events or precursor events that may signal a possible problem in the near future, and we have to act on these things. So that's why I put it out. But what's happening, and one of the things that you can look at, and I think this is a small event that you can analyze and take a look at. And one of the things that's happening is station owners can still buy gas. They can still get the gas in a lot of these places, but it's like they have to buy it for $4.90 a gallon, but they can only really turn around and sell it for like $5 a gallon, because that's about the only thing the market's going to bear. And I think in some cases that there's I don't know if there's price controls or restrictions on how much they can sell it for, but the issue is that they chose not to buy the goods to sell because it wasn't worth it to them. So this is part of what we're going to see as inflation rises. The wholesale cost of goods, or the raw materials for goods, are going to increase to a point where the vendors, the retailers, are going to choose not to sell that item. And in some cases, this is where items basically disappear off the shelves. The next news item I want to talk to strikes a little bit closer to home. We saw this back in the recession in 2009, 2010, I think. or actually it may have been 2008, 2009. But the point is back in the recession, we saw a lot of gasoline thefts where people were poking holes in the bottom of plastic gas tanks and just draining the fuel out. Now, we haven't seen a whole lot of this lately, or at least it hasn't really been in the media as much. But in a town not too far from me, just I think last week, there was at least 4 victims of where thieves basically took, it looks like they drilled 2 holes in the gas tank and they drained all the gas out. Now, I'm not sure why they used a drill because, it produces sparks. I would think that'd be dangerous, but thieves aren't known to be all that smart. But here are some of the things that you can look forward to as gas prices rise, as inflation rises, and people don't have money. People are going to steal what they need. And this brings up the topic of we need to be prepared for this. One of the things you can do is obviously increase your home security. If you can park your car in a garage, that's certainly going to help, with these type of thefts, because they typically are going to happen at night when, most people are sleeping. If you don't have a garage, or if you have a vehicle like mine that's too big for the garage and has to stay out all night, you're at risk. And this is one of the things that we're going to have to deal with, as prices start to rise. There's an article over at a website called Financial Sense at financialsense.com, and it's written by Richard Russell, titled "The Only Way Out Is to Devalue." And it's a good little article about what we can expect because of the Fed's move to basically monetize the debt and keep printing money. And I submit this as basically just another opinion on what we think is going to happen. As you know, I'm a firm believer in do your own research. And I think any time we can find more information about what we're facing, I think that makes us better preppers. I'm going to put the link in the show notes. You can go ahead and click on it from the website there. And it's not that long. It basically talks about how the Fed is printing money out of thin air and how this is going to erode the purchasing power of the dollar. Honestly, stuff we've covered before, but again, I thought you might like to see another angle, another take on it, and it's a fairly short article. We've been talking about some economic issues, and I've got a couple more economy-based things I want to go over, but before I do, I want to talk about our first sponsor really quick, seedsnow.com. The more I go through this site and I see what they have, I really like the way they've got everything set up, as opposed to, you buy seeds or you go over to Home Depot or Walmart and you buy, this little paper bag of seeds and you have no idea really what the quality is, or even if you look and read all the fine print, you're still not really sure if it's a hybrid or what you're getting here. With seedsnow.com, you're getting high-quality seeds. They're all fresh and they're all tested. They're 100% non-GMO. They are, which if you don't know, means non-genetically modified. So they're like 100% natural, 100% non-hybrid. They're heirloom seeds. These are the seeds that you want when you decide to grow your garden. Especially for preppers, this is exactly what we want. We want to be able to take the seeds from what we grow this year and plant them again next year and have more food grow. We know food's going to get more expensive. Start looking to growing your own food now. Go to the website, seedsnow.com, and take a look at their seeds. I think you're going to be impressed by the prices and how easy it will be for you to get some seeds for your garden plan. Seedsnow.com. And for the listeners of the Preparedness Podcast, when you use the discount code PREP10, PREP10, you can take an additional 10% off your order. That's seedsnow.com. When we look at everything that's out there and everything that's going on, and we take a look at the news, I'll be honest, I don't like watching the news. I can't remember the last time I actually watched a newscast on TV. Even CNN or Fox or any of those, or even the local stuff. It's just, they don't focus on the things that I want to know. I want to know from a preparedness standpoint, what the danger points are. What do I have to watch out for? What is happening that I can look at and project forward and see what might be happening and what I need to watch out for? So when I do look at the news, it's usually through the internet. And when I look at all these different sources, I'm looking for signs, flag, signals, whatever you want to call them, of what we may be looking at in the future. This next article, I think, is one of those flags. This is from the IMF chief economist, Oliver Blanchard. And he said that he expects the world economic crisis to last 10 years from the 2008 disaster mark. So even though he's talking from a point in the past, let's say 4 years in the past, what he's basically saying is that we're looking at least another 6 years of economic strife, which does fall in line with what else we know about the bad economic times that are probably coming our way. And so again, I'll put the link in the show notes. You can go over that, but I include this because this is just, call it a signpost if you want, but we need to check and double check and recheck what we think to make sure that what we think is going to happen is likely to happen, so that we're prepared for it and we know that we're taking the appropriate steps to be prepared and we're not blindsided by something that comes out of left field. It doesn't really tell us anything we don't know. For example, it talks about, the problems in Europe. I mean, it's a very short article, but it mentions the financial crisis in Europe and how, the heavily debt-ridden countries of Greece, Spain, Portugal, Italy, and Ireland are, they're having issues, and that insolvency is still threatening the economy. Remember, this is a global economy that we're in, and that, these countries do affect what's happening here. When the Fed prints all this money out of thin air, it does affect other countries in other parts of the world. Which leads us right to the next story I wanted to get to, and that is the currency wars that the Fed has basically propagated or instigated. The rest of the world's currencies are threatened by QE3. Personally, to me, this seems like this article was written by bankers for bankers or banker wannabes or whatever, but it does illustrate the fact that other currencies are having issues with basically our inflation. As I explained or tried to explain in the hyperinflation series, when we inflate our money, which means, say, printing a lot of money out of thin air, we export that inflation to other countries. This is one of the reasons we have global crisis and tension right now, is because they don't want our inflation, but they don't have a choice because they don't have the reserve currency. We do. Same thing with the oil currency. Everything is paid for in dollars, which it props up our money supply because anything that's in demand has value. Well, as China is getting ready to basically supplant the dollar as the oil currency, that means demand for the U.S. dollar is going to drop, and things that have less demand have less value. That's just a really simple way of thinking about that. There's more complexity there, but really, in a nutshell, that's basically what happens. In 1976, Mexico went through a currency devaluation. Now, we've seen this happen elsewhere. We've had hyperinflation and devaluations in Argentina and other places that are pretty well known as far as what people write about. Over at silverdoctors.com, they have an article about living through a currency devaluation. Again, this is one of those articles that you should read to get an idea of what we might expect here in this country if they decide to devalue the dollar. Now, the only question I have not been able to answer is, if the federal government wants to devalue the dollar, I don't know what they're going to devalue it against. So, for example, in this article, the peso was devalued against the U.S. dollar. So it was 12.5 pesos to 1 U.S. dollar. And then a few days later, it was 24.5 pesos to $1. That's devaluation. Your money is suddenly worth less. I don't know if they're going to devalue it to gold or the euro or some other stable currency. The euro seems like it'd be the most likely candidate for this, but given the instability that the euro has, the euro is making the dollar look stronger. So I'm not really sure. Maybe the Chinese yuan, not really sure about that yet. However, this article can give you an idea of what to expect and more importantly, how fast that we can expect it. Things like overnight, a few days later, in a couple weeks. This is what we need to know, because when we learn from history, we read it in a book or we hear it from our grandparents or something like that, it's time compressed, like the Great Depression. You know, in school, you learn about the Great Depression in a matter of days or maybe a couple weeks at most. And so we get this concept of it being a very short period of time, and it wasn't a short period of time. It was years. So in order to kind of counter that time compression that we're used to, I think it's very important to read firsthand accounts of people who have actually gone through this stuff, so you can kind of see, you know, how long things take, or the flip side, how quickly things happen. Again, I'll have the link in the show notes, and you can go ahead and read through it. It's not very long. Our next sponsor has been with us for a while, and we appreciate their support. I've started to get some feedback from listeners who have gone ahead and ordered the legacy foods, either from buyemergencyfoods.com or preparewise.com. You can get to either of those by clicking on the banner that's on the website, but they basically written to me and said, you know what, this stuff is good. We like this stuff. They got the sample packs, and they're making plans to go ahead and buy more because they find out that it's well packaged, it tastes good, it's easy to make. One of the things that really stands out to me, if you go through and you kind of look at how it's packaged, is that they're packaged in a 6-serving Mylar pouch that is flushed with nitrogen and then has an oxygen absorber placed inside. So what this means is that they're flushing all the oxygen out of the bag before they seal it. And then just before they seal it, they're sticking an O2 absorber in there. So any residual oxygen that's in there is going to be absorbed by the O2 absorber. This basically means that the amount of oxygen that's in the pouch where the food is residing is well below the 2% that's needed for long-term storage life. And this is just one of the many reasons why I like the Legacy brand of storage food, is because they take the time to do it right. And so you can really see the care they've taken into their food. You know, it looks good, it tastes good. The Mylar pouches are thick, heavy stuff. I couldn't just rip it with my hand. I had to cut it. I have no doubts believing that this is going to last 25 years on my shelf. So go to the website, click on the banner for buyemergencyfoods.com or preparewise.com, and check out the great food they have. I think you're going to like it. One of the types of terrorist attacks that we don't really talk about here much on the Preparedness podcast are cyber attacks. And it's not because I don't think that they're a threat. It's just that there's not much you can do because what is being attacked is out of your control. Nuclear power plants, the U.S. government, the Pentagon, there's nothing you can do to control these. So there's very little that we can do as preppers to, stop these things. And I don't think there's much we can do beyond what we're already prepping to prep for cyber attacks. However, this past week, actually, I think it was the middle of September, the U.S. banks were hit by a heavy attack of cyber attacks. There's been a couple groups that have claimed responsibility, which nobody really seems to believe because of the way the nature of the attacks and stuff. But what I want to point out is that I think keeping your money in banks is becoming more and more dangerous, not just from hyperinflation, but also because of things like this, cyber attacks. If they get in there and they wipe out everything, or they change the number, or if you happen to have a large savings account and siphoning money off of your account, that's a big deal. And other than, not really keeping your money in banks, I'm not really sure what a solution would be for this, because quite honestly, I don't have millions of dollars in banks. I don't have millions of dollars at all. But if I did, I probably wouldn't keep them in banks. I would probably look at some sort of physical gold or offshore accounts or foreign currencies or something like that. I just wanted to bring this up to your attention so that you need to give a second thought to how much money you're keeping in banks for a variety of reasons, and this is just one more reason to be concerned about. When I think about alternate energy, and I think about how I can provide that for myself on small scale, maybe up to medium scale, one of the things that I ponder about is battery life or battery storage life. How can I store batteries where they're usable? How long can I let them go before I have to recharge them? Battery technology has improved greatly over the past few years. If you look at the batteries that we have in our devices, like iPhones and iPads and laptops and Android devices and stuff like that, they're nothing short of amazing. For example, I have a couple old iPhones. I think they're iPhone 3Gs, and they sit around in a drawer and do nothing because nobody really wants to play with them because they're old. I can't really sell them for too much, but my thought is to use them, pack them full of information, text documents and PDFs and stuff, and store them away in Faraday cages. But they have a sealed battery in them. So how long can I keep it in there and have it still good? Now, even sitting in the drawer where it's easily accessible, I don't charge it all the time. And quite often, like just this past weekend, I pulled them out and both phones were completely dead. And I've been amazed that when I recharge them back to full, the battery seems to behave just like it always did. I don't notice any difference in life. I don't notice any difference in how long it holds a charge or anything like that, or at least not yet. Apple has a support document that is basically entitled All About Battery Storage Life, and it's primarily for Mac notebooks, but I think the battery technology is the same because they're talking about sealed lead-acid batteries, nickel-cadmium batteries, nickel metal hydrate batteries, and the lithium-ion batteries, which are the common types of batteries that we as preppers are going to have for rechargeable batteries. Now, this document was last updated on August 30th, 2012. I don't know if it's been out longer than this, but so it was updated recently. What's great about this little support article is basically it gives you an idea of how long batteries can sit, the different type of batteries, how long they can sit and still have some sort of minimal charge, and how long they can basically sit in storage and still be able to be charged. And they're, basically, I would say somewhere in that 1 to 3 months, you might still have a charge. And anywhere from 6 to 12 months, you're still going to be able to charge that battery, which seems to be about what I experienced on my old iPhone. So if you're going to put some of these devices into a Faraday cage or they're going to be into long-term storage, if you can't remove the battery, at least you should get into the habit of running them through a charge cycle, say every 30 to 60 days. In the last podcast, I went over how you can become better organized and use technology to organize and inventory your preps more efficiently. And I suggested using a software app called Evernote. And the last thing I want to cover today is there's an article in PC World about how to run your business in Evernote. And basically, it came out October 8th, so it was just last week. But it's not an end-all article about everything you can do with Evernote, but it's a fairly long article and gives you an insight into all the things you can do with Evernote. For those of you who are not familiar with Evernote but find out, wow, this is a really powerful app and I can do a lot of stuff with it, this can give you a pretty good idea of how other people are using it and some of the things that you can do. For example, Evernote has these plugins that you can put into your browsers, and you can clip web pages using these plugins. So as you go through, whether it's a school project or you're collecting preparedness information, you can go through and clip the information directly into Evernote. This makes it vastly simpler to collect all sorts of information on the internet. They're not the only software out there that does stuff like this, but I think it's pretty easy to use, so that if you're not familiar with what can be done on your smartphone and your tablets and your computers, this is a really good introduction in what can be done. So that wraps it up for this podcast on current events and news. I want to thank you for downloading and listening to the podcast. You can reach me through the website at www.thepreparednesspodcast.com, at Facebook at facebook.com/preparednesspodcast, and on Twitter as Prepcast. And of course, you can always email me directly at rob@prepcast.info. Until next time, enjoy life and be safe.